Hello everyone, I am Bradley Sward, and this is my solution to Day 6 of the Advent of Code 2023 competition. This video covers both parts of the problem called Wait for It. I am solving this in Python as always, so let's take a look at the problem real quick here. And so the data set is relatively simple this time around. So basically you have a boat race and you have amount of time and a distance that someone else has, basically they hold the best score for the amount of time that you're given for the specific game. And basically you start and it says you hold down this button to accelerate your car. I don't know if it's accelerating, but it's at least increasing its velocity. I think you're increasing it by 1 millimeter per millisecond. So it's an increase, so whatever it is. And so it's saying that there are many different ways we could do this, but we're basically just holding down the button for a certain amount of time from the start of the race, and the boat doesn't move until you let go of the button. And the question is, like in this case for 7, like if I hold down the button for 0 seconds or 1 second or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, how many of those different ways work out to beat the record of the 9? Or and same with 15. Like if I hold it down for 5 seconds, will I beat 40 for a distance? So forth and so on. And if for part 1 anyway, if you multiply the number of winning times you get for the first element here of each of this times the number of times you are beating the distance for the second times the number of times you beat it for the third, you get this number, and that's the number that they care about here. But just to say here, you can see there's 8 different ways, or let's see, it's 8 different ways to win, however many different ways to win here. Uh, there are 4 different ways to win the race and beat the 9 milliseconds. You literally have to beat it. You can't just tie it here, and so forth and so on, and so forth and so on. And so you will get a number of 288 for that. My data set's a little different, but let's take a look at how I go about this. And it's relatively simple. And actually, the way this worked out for me, it made part 2 relatively simple. I think I solved the problem in Python in about 45 seconds or so otherwise, but here we go. So here is part 1 problem. Let me clear this out. And so this time around, the data set's really easy. Just get the number of times, get the number of distances, and we're just going to do this, in this case, 3 or 4 times over. My data set has 4 different values here. And so it's just saying, and every time I'm multiplying, so I'm going to start by 1, and I'm going to multiply the number of times I win. But the cool part is here is that I discovered there's a formula, a relatively simple formula for this, and it's um, basically whatever the record, or not the record, the number of time that you're given for the race, in this case like the 48 here, that is the 48 that goes in here. And then if you're doing this for 40 from anywhere from 0 to 48, then you apply this formula using t in that range. You start from 0, and then you work your way up all the way up to 48. Or maybe I need to do time plus 1 here, but it seemed to work both ways, so it doesn't matter. I think time plus 1. Well, I guess it doesn't much matter, because if you do all the way up to 48, the boat never moves because you've held down the button for the entire time. So I guess it makes sense to not worry about that. But this simple formula here, t times the quantity time minus t, that will get me the distance value for each individual race. And basically I'm saying, or a attempted race or theoretical race. And then in that case, if I could simplify this maybe a little further here, but if that's greater than that index value of whatever the distance is, then I'm going to increase the wins. And I just do this. In this case, I do this 48 times, I do this 93 times, I do this 85 times, I do this 95 times, and I multiply the individual values together. And then in this case, you get the solution of, and it's a pretty quick computation. Uh, that is 2,750 whatever million or thousand, and that is the value that I get for part 1. So then now the difference here for part 2, and you could manipulate the file slightly different here and just have it, basically, since the data set is so simple, you literally could modify the file, but I went ahead and I did not do that. Let me find here's my solution for part 2. And you can see that basically what it says for part 2 here is that instead of 4 races, you're just doing 1 race with a giant bunch of numbers apparently the numbers need to be added together or concatenated together, the strings. So 7, 15, and 30 becomes 71,530, and 940 and 200 becomes 940,200. And the only difference here is it just becomes a huge number to compute, because of the way things get joined together. But for part two here, and it's only one race, so I got rid of the time. I don't have to do anything, or I guess I did. Yeah, I guess I don't even need this. After I thought about it here, I don't even need this here. I just need to compute and just send out the number of wins, and then this is part two here. But just to say, it takes a little while, maybe 45 seconds, maybe a minute. I'm not exactly sure, but you will get the answer of, while I'm thinking about it, while I'm talking about it here, or at least in my case, I'll get the answer of 34,788,142 when it comes through. And it just takes a little while because it is computing, quite a few numbers here. Well, how many is it generating, right? Like let's see, that's 489,000, no, 4,893,000, no, 48,938,595 entries. And when it gets through, when it computes this 4 million times in Python, you get the answer I was talking about, 34,788,142. So that is my solution for day 6. I'm still working on day 5, part 2 anyway. So at least I have some time to think about that and maybe finish it tomorrow. It is an interesting problem. It's definitely harder in my brain than this problem was. Your mileage may vary. But thanks for watching this video as always. I hope you learned something from it, and I hope maybe you can teach me too if you know a better way. And that's what these competitions are all about. So thanks for watching again. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you later. See you later.